Greetings YouTube, the day is finally here for me to review Kampf. I finished it off on Wednesday night. It's now Friday. Hopefully I can get this video up either today or tomorrow, which would be Saturday. But I just wanted to get this started, so I want to start with a direct quote from the book. Here from page 14, I believe it's on. Yeah. The quote goes as follows. To learn history means to seek and find the forces which are the causes leading to those effects which we subsequently perceive as historical events. These are very true words, and I was, in all honesty, shocked that they came from Hitler. But the history around the book is actually more interesting than what's in the book. The Treaty of Versailles in 1918 literally screwed the German economy. The treaty forced Germany to pay for all the damages of the war, blaming Germany for the war, essentially. It literally took millions of German marks to buy a single loaf of bread. And this caused a lot of disheartenment among the German people. And to top that off, your average German infantry soldier, to which Hitler was, couldn't understand why they lost the war. Because right up till the very end, the Germans were actually making larger gains than the Allied power, the Entente powers. That's Britain, France, the United States. So they couldn't understand why they lost the war. We know it was the British naval blockade which was starving out the German people. But people on the front lines did not see that. They were still getting their food, they were winning the war on a tactical level, so they couldn't understand why they lost the war. The movement was already there before Hitler. So, before Hitler even entered into the picture, so. Let's see. Sorry, I have my talking points here. Just trying to figure out. So, come 1923, we have Hitler's beer hall push, which was his attempt to overthrow the German government and seize power. He was subsequently arrested, sentenced to, I think it was 4 or 5 years or something like that. I could be wrong on that, but he only served a few months of that. Turns out anyone can get out of prison with good behavior. But in that time, he dictated the first volume of Kampf, which was published in 1925. And this is the context in which I tried to take the book. Because Hitler hadn't committed his atrocities yet, so I tried not to count what he did against the weight of this book. But the volume 1 is called A Reckoning. He starts talking about his seemingly average childhood, nothing too particular about it considering the time period. He mentions he didn't really pay attention in school unless he found the subject fascinating, which goes on to a later point within the next chapter where he talks about how he got into politics. Getting into politics, he decided, during his time in Vienna, he picked up these political pamphlets and would only read what he already agreed with. Like, he only took in his side of the story. So he didn't understand the other side, and through these political pamphlets, he learned both pro and con of the monarchies, the dictatorships, communism, Marxism, and he really does weigh pro and con within the pages of this wretched book, to say the least. And it is here, I believe, ended up getting radicalized. Because his own admission, he's only taking in ideas that appeal to him. He might have already been biased, but this that's just my opinion. You're welcome to form your own. Let me know in the comment section below what you think on that. And then from there, he literally, he starts laying out his plan after that. Like chapter 3 goes into political inexperience. And that's where he rails off against every form of government. And literally every single form of government, including dictatorships. So again, I took that as he only wanted governments where he was in charge of. Those are the only governments that he liked. So that's kind of my impression on that. One problem that really got to me, and I almost put the book down and quit reading it because of this point, he starts addressing overpopulation. And his argument is that once people are overpopulated, it only leads to starvation and suffering. On that point alone, he is right. His solution to this is to acquire more land to feed the growing population. And here he lays out his plan for eastward expansion. So he would be going from Germany eastward towards Russia. And this is part of why I have the world map up behind me. It helps me understand what's going on when I'm reading history. But he conveniently leaves out altogether the people who are already on that land. He doesn't even mention them. He doesn't say, hey, this is what I'm going to do with them. He just leaves them out altogether. Which really left a sour note with me because his plan can only lead to genocide and destruction of entire peoples. So that's really made it difficult for me to really get through that point. But yeah. Then he goes into war propaganda, to which, again, he partially blamed the whole war for, and like losing the war. He said German propaganda wasn't strong enough to win us the war, and the British propaganda was better, and that's why they won. Well, in part that's true, large part that's false. It's kind of one of those, it's a half-truth, half-lie kind of deal. But he would go on to use propaganda masterfully through Joseph Goebbels, and sorry if I'm mispronouncing any names, but Goebbels was his propaganda minister, and an absolute genius when it came to propaganda. But, nutcase in his own right. And when it came to the chapter called Nation and Race, this is the part where I literally almost threw the book out a window. Literally. Because of one statement here, and I'm going to read this for you. It is idle to argue which race or races were the original representatives of human culture, and hence the real founders of all that we sum up under the word humanity. It is simpler to raise this question with regard to the present, and here a clear and easy answer as results. All human culture, all the results of art, science, and technology that we see before us today are in fact exclusively the creative product of the Aryan. That is literally the most racist thing I've ever read in my life, and I have read 12 Years a Slave. And you'll find me with my book reviews, I often reference other books, If you want me to do a review of 12 Years a Slave, I will do that as soon as I get the book back from my dad and I can read it again. And then from here, he goes on about how evil the Jews are. One blood, one race, one nation, one language. His plan can only lead to the extermination of all non-Aryans. That's the only outcome of his plan. And to be honest with you, that's something I cannot stand for. Like I said, I almost threw the book out the window at this point. And to show you I'm not kidding, I don't know how well you can see it in the video, but see how these pages are torn out? That happened as a result of me struggling not to throw the book out the window so I could finish it. And that's basically all the talking points I have on Volume 1. Volume 2 was essentially Volume 1 on repeat. He talks about his plan from a more legislative standpoint and actually justifies the invasion of Russia by saying, never forget that the following sorry, let me go over, get my mouth to work properly. Never forget that the rulers of present-day Russia are common blood-stained criminals, that they are the scum of humanity. Now, Volume 2 was published in 1927. By this point, he's starting to get into politics. He's starting to look at getting himself elected, and so his words were a little more dialed back. But to refer to the Russian leaders at that time as blood-stained criminals and the scum of humanity, well, to be honest with you, he's not wrong. Stalin, at this point, was starving out the Ukrainian people through collectivization, which basically was, hey, you grow the food, I take it, sell it abroad, so we get more money to build our industry. It was part of Stalin's 5-year plan, and millions of people died in that. Literally millions of people. Not exactly a good guy in his own right, but we're talking Kampf, not Joseph Stalin right now. So that was basically my takeaway from Volume 2, that he really laid out his expansion to the east with regards to Russia. And his justification was, well, they're a bunch of criminals anyway, let's do away with the entire fucking system. And if I swear, and it offends you, I'm sorry, but that's the way I talk sometimes. So if I swear, again, that's just the way I talk. I don't mean any offense by it. The overall of this book, it was a difficult book to read. I started this book on January 17th of 2021. And I just finished this book on March 10th. It took almost 2 months to read this book. And just to put it into perspective, like, you look at how thick this book is. I don't know how well you can judge from the video, but I have read The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and Barack Obama's book, A Promised Land, in less time. So it was definitely a challenge to get through, but unfortunately not so much for its content. It was difficult to get through because of poor grammar, lack of punctuation. He changes topics literally mid-sentence, which forced me at several points to go back and reread what I just read to make sure I understood it properly. It was definitely a challenge to get through. Now, my dad told me that some people have told him that Mein Kampf is the hardest book in the world to read. It's certainly up there among the most difficult books in the world. It is, like, I've read the Bible, I've read the Quran, I've read The Origin of Species. And Mein Kampf is the hardest book I've read. It's also the most hate-filled book I've ever read in my life. And I have absolutely no intention of reading it again. That being said, I also don't recommend this book for a casual reader because of how difficult it is to get through. But if you want to study history and take in the other side, then my advice to you is good luck. I tried reading this before. This was my second time trying to read this book. First time I gave up after the first 100 pages or so. My mom, she tried reading it, only got as far as maybe 10 pages, according to her. She just couldn't handle it. My mom's pretty leftist, she just couldn't handle the book, so she put it down. No disrespect to her. She's an avid reader, and easily one of the most intelligent people that I know. So, my dad, he did not keep count of how many times he tried to read the book, but he read the book, did eventually get through the book. He told me he was in his 40s when he did. I'm 35, I got through it, so yeah, if you want to try reading this book, the more power to you, and good luck, basically. It's really a difficult book to get through. I cannot stress that enough. And the best part about it, for me, like, literally, the silver lining is I've actually read it. And I also want to say that there were points in this book that literally echoed to today's time with the rise of white supremacy that we've been seeing all over the world. And once again, I came out in another video condemning white supremacy and racism. I cannot stress that enough. That you cannot judge a person by their skin tone. You cannot judge a person by their religion, their creed. You have to judge a person by the content of their character. And in the case of Hitler, well, I went into this book knowing he was a genocidal lunatic. I came out of this book with the word lunatic bold, highlighted, underlined. He should have been locked up in a mental institution, not elected to Chancellery of Germany. And that's another takeaway, that Mein Kampf was published before he took power. So the world was warned. And still today serves as a warning. The back cover, which you saw at the beginning of this video, literally reads, "Here in the pages of Mein Kampf, Hitler presented the world with his dark vision for the future. Years would pass before he attained the power to realize that vision. But Mein Kampf's existence denies the free world the excuse of ignorance. We dismissed him as a madman. We ignored his wretched book. The result was a tragedy of unprecedented proportions. This is yet another lesson to take away from Mein Kampf. The lesson of vigilance and responsibility, of not closing our eyes to the evil around us. Since World War II, our societies have taken promising steps in this regard. It is our responsibility to ensure the continued progress of that civilizing trend." I literally cannot sum it up better than that. This book is a warning beacon for hatred, racism, fascism, and it literally echoes today's time. Part of why I went into this book is because of the January 6th insurrection that took place in Washington, D.C. And I'm grateful that that did not get any further, because had Donald Trump managed to get a second term, the United States would have had its last election. I really hope the American people and the government officials there realize that and how close they came to losing their democracy. I was deeply concerned about Donald Trump right from the beginning, because I read, I wouldn't say read, I've watched a lot of historical documentaries about Hitler and World War II, so I went into this book knowing what he did. But when it came to Donald Trump, I saw far too many parallels. Both used racism to obtain power. Both proposed mass deportations. Both used racist propaganda, basically. I fail to see how Hitler blaming the Jews for all of Germany's problems is any different than Donald Trump blaming immigrants for all of America's problems. It is the same thing, just slightly different angle. So I'm grateful that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election, and I really hope he does not get involved in politics, and I really hope that the United States can move past Donald Trump. Because I remember his first few rallies after he announced his bid, he was doing the Nazi salute. I saw him back then as a fascist. People called me a madman because of it. But I'm noticing more and more people kind of going, you know what, I think you were right about Donald Trump. After reading Mein Kampf, I can honestly say that the parallels are there if you want to see them. If you don't want to see them, that's your business. It's just my political opinions and beliefs. But on that note too, I'm not exactly a liberal or a leftist person either. I'm more of a centrist. I have voted conservative in the past. Last couple federal elections here in Canada, I have voted liberal. But I have also voted conservative in the past as well. Because I vote for who I think is going to lead the country better. I'm not a party loyalist. I'm not, that's not who I am. So, I think I said all I want to say about this book. If you enjoyed this book review, please like and subscribe to my channel. And, as always, stay safe. And let me know in the comment section below what your opinions on the matter are. And if you are affiliated with any of these white supremacist groups, please keep your racist bullshit out of the comments. I cannot stress that enough. I'm not racist. I don't want that on my channel. Okay? So again, please like and subscribe to my video. And stay safe and be mindful of the deadly pandemic that is ravaging our planet. Thank you.